Hey people, your radical truth therapist here. I hope the day greets you peacefully, because we just don't know what's going to happen, do we? However, we are prepared. We're open-minded, we welcome perspective, we know ourselves, and we are willing to explore new sides of ourselves. We have self-awareness, and we understand that we should aim to align our lives, our lifestyles and the way that we live our lives to our authenticity, regardless what that looks like to others. And sometimes you have to fit into spaces that seem awkward in order to get to the point where you can be authentic. So, how awesome. I want to talk to you about leadership today because I think that we should kind of be realizing that those who I am speaking to are people who somewhat lead in whatever capacity. Now, that could be even just parenting. Parents are leaders. And parenting is a great example of leadership, to be fair. Some people are just not good at it and abandon their role, both male and female. But those who embody that and really push through do it fantastically. Some people do it naturally, some people have to kind of learn, and that's not bad, that's good, because it shows that you are flexible to adapting new behaviors to self. Sometimes, people who do things naturally are not necessarily aware that they're doing it, so therefore there's no conscious flexibility in their character. Now, this particular episode was inspired by a call that I had last night. I was coaching a client. So we were having a therapy session, and when I do my therapy sessions, it's quite interesting because they flow naturally. I love to see what comes up for the client. I don't plan it and go, oh yeah, well this week we're talking about this, and this week we're talking about spiders. No. We allow the natural streams of consciousness to happen. And it's quite interesting because most of my clients are like CEOs, like they run big businesses and stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, I've got people from everyday life, but I love the mixture of people. My client list is very diverse. However, I am very impressed that I have CEOs on my books. And what I really enjoy is the fact that I don't have to tailor myself. I can be Sereena. I can be me. I don't have to have no airs and graces when it comes to my practice. Obviously, I have to have etiquette. You have to have etiquette in any area of life, whether it's your relationships, your work, friendships. There's etiquette to socializing as well. But fundamentally, my character comes out, and I love it. I love that I can be me. And my character fits in spaces that other people's characters don't. You know, there's an awkwardness, and that used to be me, but the more I became comfortable with my flaws and my positives, is the more I created my world in a way where I can be myself, and I love that, and I see that. So anyway, myself and my client are talking, I'm listening, and I'm explaining to him that all of our sessions don't have to be, they're not always going to be like doom and gloom. I think a lot of people have a misconception that when you have counselling or therapy, it's all doom and gloom. And it's so not. We had such a laugh yesterday. Like, my client was laughing so much. It was hilarious. And we also got gems out of that vibration as well, which was him focusing on a particular area of leadership that I think we all kind of miss and don't kind of appreciate. So when we were talking about what was going on for him and stuff, he was like, you know, he's much more comfortable now with allowing people's stuff to be their stuff. And I was like, ooh, my little fairy cats, ooh. And I'm going to tell you why I was like, ooh. Because I think it's so good to be like, yeah, your stuff is your stuff, so keep it over there. But it's also good to be able to recognize that as a leader, you should be able to regulate your followers. Let's just call them followers for now. Clients, staff, whatever. Yeah, you should be able to regulate your people. And he was like, huh? I should be able to regulate them. So I said, yeah, so if they see you as the person who they can complain to, the safe space they can talk to, why wouldn't you apply a new way of dealing with that? And that way could be to support them to regulate themselves. And he was like blown away. He was like, whoa, I never even thought about that. I said, yeah, because it's all cute us saying, oh, you know, your stuff is your stuff. But it's so powerful to be able to notice when people are dysregulated and projecting, help them to regulate themselves so that they can stay on the course, stay on track, stay on the trajectory. That's powerful. And that's a leader. You know? When we are children and we're dysregulated, what do? We go to our parents, don't we? And in that situation, it's appropriate because we're children. However, as we get older, we're taught to be independent with our emotions, our thoughts, get a handle on ourselves and develop a level of self-control. Now, what happens is we get older and it's like, okay, then yeah, I'm supposed to do that. But was it explained what that looks like? What does it look like to self-regulate? What does it look like to get support with maintaining regulation? So what do I do? You know, we didn't ask the question as children and say, oh, mommy and daddy, so what do we do? What do I do? So when I'm dysregulated, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling confused. What do I do with that? Nobody has that extended conversation. So then what you find is you're in a workplace, in your establishment, and you've got all these adults that become dysregulated at times, and they need support being regulated. And that's a special space to be in. You have the opportunity to do that. These people don't know that they're dysregulated and they need regulated. They are just looking for a place to put those emotions because it feels so heavy to them that they can't suppress it. You know, because this is why a lot of people have therapy and counseling and things like that, because they just disassociate from their emotions. And I feel like, and I know that the whole way we've been parented, where we've just kind of been like, well, get yourself together, go into the world, work, do whatever it is you're doing. That whole thing without being given that tool package is the reason why there's so much dysregulation going on, so much projection, so much stuff going on, where people are just vulnerable at times. And he runs training courses. He has a training center. So sometimes the learners will call him up and be complaining and whatever. And I'm just saying to him that most of the time, those people are not actually complaining about the course. They're just experiencing frustration that they don't know where to place. And it would be a good idea for it to be your job to support them with regulating themselves so that they don't blame the course. Because most of the time when people feel, it becomes external. Again, the fact that we're more emotionally intelligent than them and you know, have the knowledge of self-awareness, they don't know, so it's not bad. It just is, some things just are. So it's a case of how are we going to keep them on the course, and how are we going to teach them to be able to do that for themselves in the future. So when they're making a real complaint, inshallah, they are making a real complaint about the business or about how they're being treated. And this is important, you guys. This is so important. It's an important thinking to take into your everyday situations. You know, if you look at some of the most successful relationships, the couples know how to regulate each other. You know, I was quite close to one of my friends the one time when we were younger. Obviously, we're adults now, so, you know, we're not spending as much time with each other. But she was married at the time. I had just got divorced. And I admired her and her husband's relationship. And I remember having a conversation with her the once. We went to a nice hotel. We had coffee and all that stuff. And sandwiches and whatnot. And I said to her, honey, I don't need to be intrusive, but I do have a question regarding your marriage. And she's like, no, go ahead. What do you want to know? And I was like, you guys seem to understand each other in a way that I wasn't able to get from my husband. And she was like, you know what, Sereena? She's glad that I mentioned it, because she didn't want to kind of comment on certain things that she observed in my relationship or in my marriage that, you know, because it's just not what you do without me kind of bringing it up. And she was like, do you know what works? I said, what? She said, you know why it works? I said, why? She said, because we regulate each other. She goes, when my husband knows when I'm dysregulated, and he creates that safe space for me to collect myself. He doesn't judge me. He doesn't say, oh, you're an emotional woman, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? I said, what? She said, and I do the same for him. He doesn't think emotions belong to a woman. He knows that he gets dysregulated in his own man way. And we have practiced over time being there for each other in that way. And I was like, wow. And I've taken that with me. I've taken that conversation with me throughout my life. It made me literally think about how I can support people especially when they're dysregulated in my everyday interactions. And most of the people who know me actually recognize that, and they talk about that as a very good trait of mine. Because most of the things that work for me, I do, project that into my therapy sessions. I've had to do a lot of personal development on myself from a young age because of my experience, because I was independent from a very young age. So therefore, the only way I could survive was by learning about myself. And I'm sure you guys have got your stories as well. But yes, leadership and cultivating the ability to support people to regulate themselves and transferring that skill, because you don't want to create codependency where those people are dependent on you to regulate themselves moving forward. And that's what parents were trying to avoid, I guess, the codependency. However, it's about teaching. So, for example, when your kids are young and they're getting older, you start to teach them how to utilize their money. Many parents didn't, but yeah, they just say you're that type of parent. And they can then go into the world knowing how to manage their money. And how's about we start teaching our children how to leave the home with the knowledge of being able to regulate themselves. So when they go into workplaces, CEOs are not having to kind of parent their staff. And again, I don't say that in an offensive way, and some people are very good at regulating themselves, but a lot of the time adults spend a lot of the time suppressing their emotions and having different ways of coping. So we explored coping strategies, like how do we regulate ourselves. So we talked about things like going for a walk, going for a drive, calling a loved one to listen to them, calling a loved one for a chat, scrolling through our phones. I don't know, can you guys think of some more? There's a long list of ways to regulate yourself when you are feeling frustrated. And with that, as a leader, it would be such an awesome thing to encourage people who you can tell are dysregulated to find a way of regulating themselves independently. You know, this is so nice. This cultivates real good relationships. It's not going to work all the time. You're going to hear some stuff that's really triggering. I remember when I was training at a college, and I had a group of students, and there was one girl. She was just like really fidgety, and they said the tutors told me that she's ADHD, etc. And so in the class, I spent a lot of time dealing with her dysregulation, which was allowed and excused because she allegedly had ADHD. So I decided to, you know, have mentoring sessions with the girls. It was a beauty therapy course, and just like 15-20 minutes of conversations once a week with the girls to just support them with, you know, getting any worries off their chests, etc., etc. And I didn't want to target that particular girl, you know, and other students had their things and had their moments. So I just thought it would be good to kind of create that safe space for everybody. And I remember asking that particular girl, so how do you usually regulate yourself? You know, when she knew what the word regulating meant. But for this conversation, we know what regulation is, so we're just going to just keep it there. So how do you know what regulating yourself means? And for those who don't know, regulating yourself means that you're emotionally frustrated and you can't kind of get a handle on yourself. So therefore you're dysregulated, and to regulate yourself means that you kind of collect yourself and bring yourself back to a collect space of completion where everything's fine. Your emotions are no longer in control, you are back in control. So there you go, that's regulated and dysregulated. So anyway, it came to my attention that this girl normally regulates herself by smoking weed. So she told me that before the course she smoked weed a lot, which was quite interesting because being on the course meant that she had to spend long periods of time without having a spliff. And with that awareness, that young lady was able to capture herself. Like, it's like she had a light bulb moment. She was like, whoa, raw. She's like, raw. That's why I'm fidgety. That's why I'm kind of acting like a fool in class. And I was like, wow. I was like, well, yeah. And moving forward, it took a bit of time. I think she used to go in her car and have a sniff sometimes when on the break. It's nothing to do with me, but regulate yourself. And eventually, she actually worked on stopping smoking. Like, she stopped smoking by the time the end of the course came. She stopped smoking. She was just like, I can't do this. This is affecting my finances and my survival. You know? And she started to look at other ways of regulating herself. And what we used to do in the session was just spend 5 minutes of the 20 minutes just sitting in silence with our eyes closed, a light form of meditation. And this girl went on to doing yoga. She went on a real spiritual journey. She cultivated the power of, you know, spirituality, personal development, and really done well with the course and the knowledge that she gained, which I thought was like proper fantastic. And for a lecturer, it was very liberating for me as a lecturer to see that happen for somebody. And as a leader, those were my students. I had to lead them. I had to somewhat be their parent. They had to come to me to regulate themselves and give thanks that I had an extra skill of being able to support them and put them in a position where they could then do that for themselves. So again, as a leader, it's your responsibility to, I'd say, teach your followers, your clients, your students, your people to regulate themselves. And it's a very passive process. You know, you can't be too forward with it. You can't be too obvious with it. The path is clear. We can see the horizon. So cool. So yeah, the homework this week is to support your followers to be regulated. I've put a question out there as well, and I asked, how do those who consider themselves leaders, how do they support the people who follow them or the people that they manage to regulate themselves? And I'll share two of the comments that came out. One was, she supports them to understand the power of self-awareness. And I thought that was really, really good. Ultimately, that's what it is. Let me have a look and tell you what the other one said. Oh, I'm having a deja vu. This is a deja vu. Yeah, so one of them says that they support them to reflect over what has been done and look at what might need to change in order to get themselves back in a stable position. And then another guy said he reshuffles and puts his soldiers where their attributes can shine through and where they're comfortable in their role. And I asked a further question in regards to that, because when it comes to reshuffling or putting people in different positions, they could possibly get offended and see that new position as a downgrade, maybe, which could cause further dysregulation. Or it could put them in a more comfortable position because they might, be in the wrong position. They may have, I think Scientology has a saying, it's called skipping a gradient, where you've skipped a level which dysregulates you. So for example, if you're at level 1 stage but you're trying to learn level 2 stuff, that can dysregulate you and cause you confusion. So therefore you need to go back to a lower gradient. So I get where it's coming from with that one. That's awesome as well. So yeah. If you guys want to have a smart girl chat with me, remember I have male and female clients. So just email me at Sereena.alnoor at gmail.com, and what else? Yep, my website, and you know, my socials. Everything's going to be in the caption anyway, in the description. So again, I hope the day greets you well and you got some gems out of our conversation today. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments box. You can also answer the question, you know, how do you support those who follow you or you lead to when they're dysregulated? You know, what's your strategy? What do you use? Okay. Bye for now. Love you.